Hello, my name is Janice B. Gordon, and this is Scale Your Sales Podcast. Welcome to Scale Your Sales Podcast, listed number 9 of 43 best podcasts for every sales professional. I am Janice B. Gordon, the customer growth expert, awarded RevTech strategist of 2024. In this episode of Scale Your Sales Podcast, I talked to a co-founder and who shares her experience of growing up in the Eastern Bloc, making the decision to co-found a business that's now worth over $1 million. We talk about creating a culture that has real impact and talked about where that was sparked from and how she's gone about doing that and what's really important to her. We also talked about the drivers on other revenue generating organizations. What are those drivers that creates the kind of organizations that put a lot of pressure on salespeople to reach target, hit the numbers, which doesn't always work. And we talked about what needs to change. Really great insights here. You're going to love this conversation. It's really very heartfelt and also a little bit mind-blowing as well. My next guest is the co-founder and co-CEO of the demand gen conversion platform, Chili Piper. Her company is used by GTM teams at Monday.com, Rippling, Home Depot, and more. In 2022, her company reached $1 billion valuation. She also runs a foundation focused on non-violence. She is a mum of 2 gorgeous boys. So welcome to Scale Your Sales Podcast, Alina Vandenberghe.
Thank you, Janice, for having me. I'm very grateful for you bringing a more diverse voice to sales. I think it's very needed in our industry.
Oh, well, I've just done 5-year anniversary of the podcast, and I now get a good 70% of women and diversity into the podcast. But the reason why I started it, Helena, is because I was so sick of white men in sales, podcasts, on stages. It's like it's only white men that can do sales. And I really wanted to showcase a diversity of perspectives in sales and encourage that. So that's why I started the podcast. And it sickens me. You've seen this so many times on LinkedIn when they say, we can't find any women, we can't find diversity. Well, you know, there isn't a problem finding people, they're there, but you have to just make a little bit of effort. So people are not making the effort. And so I appreciate you noticing that I am making the effort.
Oh my gosh, I think it's now more needed than ever.
Oh, yes. Well, we won't go into politics and get depressed.
Not today, maybe tomorrow.
Because we could spend the whole, well, not even half an hour on that, you know. But what I found it really interesting when I went onto your LinkedIn, I saw a post. Your dad had posted a full page, well, sent you a full page spread of you. And you said in the comments that I really wish they said she failed and still fails 1 million times. You know, I just wish failure was celebrated. And I thought this was interesting, Helena, because if you're in the UK, failure is shame, whereas actually America, failure is, well, you dust it off, you know, that's your practice, now you're ready to go. It doesn't seem to affect the course of your career, whereas actually in England, there's more of a stigma. So I'm really interested into why you said that and what your global experience is on this.
You know, we all have our heroes and we only see the top of the iceberg on our heroes. We only see the successes. And I think that's very demoralizing for someone who's just starting, because the reality is that at the top of the iceberg of our success, like in my case of that spread, the title is of that newspaper, like it's a very high circulated newspaper and it's very wide read, and the title is she went from having nothing to eat to $1 billion company. That was like the summary of it. And we see these success stories in the last mile, but the reality is that for 20 years I've worked so damn hard to get to it. And even prior to that, I started working when I was like 8. And even prior to that, I started working maybe like helping my family when I was 5. And there's a miss of perspective on that journey is that I had to get up so many times from being at the bottom of my bottoms and facing like the worst kind of rejection and the worst kind of, I went to bankruptcy like I don't know how many times already. And that's missed in the stories of success. The failures are not celebrated. And I wish there were a lot more part of the social media narrative and the like a journalist narrative to help others understand that it's not easy. You're not like born magical and like you can all of a sudden succeed. It's all about that resilience. And resilience is a foreign topic, but I wish it was a lot more talked about.
Yeah, I certainly agree with you. You know, if as an investor, the better investment in terms of the return on your investment you're going to get is if you invest in someone that's already failed, because they're not failing on your money. They've learned their mistakes.
To get back
So you actually, that's what you need to look for, someone that's already failed and they're hungry enough to get on and do it again.
And they have the drive, and the drive is such a critical component of it.
Yeah. I mean, you know, drive, it's one of those interesting things, isn't it? It's kind of linked to your whole mindset about how you view the world and your position in the world as well. If you view yourself always as the underdog, so your position's down here in compared to everyone else, it's really difficult to have that drive to go up. But if you view yourself as somewhere here, then, you know, the energy you need to put through to your drive is a lot less. So I think drive has got a lot to do with your own perspective in the world.
And actually, it's one of the main skill sets that I hire for as well, because I believe that a lot of skill sets can be taught. Like a lot of, I can do a lot of progression and educating people on all sorts of skill sets. But if you have a victim mentality that everybody is out there to get you and everybody is against you and you just fold when like life gets tough, for me as a manager, it's impossible to coach. Like that kind of victim mentality, it's impossible for me to coach. Maybe there are amazing coaches out there and I've met a few of them, but me as a manager, I don't have that kind of time to get people out of that. So as a result, I hire a lot more on that particular skill set. Do you have the drive to change the world? Then yes, come join me.
And it's interesting. I'm a partner in a company that's been doing sales assessments for the last 30 years, and they've gone back and interrogated for 200 different sectors, 154 countries. They've got millions of assessments. So it's really great data on, and it's sales specific and predictive. And drive, outlook, the will to sell is one of the most fundamental aspects that's implicit. So you don't see it in the CV. Salespeople are good at selling themselves, and interviews, it's really difficult. So it's often those implicit traits that make sales success and drive the trait that you recruit for is the most important trait.
Oh wow, I didn't know that the data shows that my intuition is right also.
Yeah, your intuition's absolutely spot on. I mean, there are lots of others that are absolutely key to success in sales that don't work in other aspects, but it's the data to actually back that up, and that's why I absolutely love it. Sales revenue leaders often working what I call a foggy crystal ball. You inherit teams or you recruit teams and make huge mistakes that cost you lots of money and difficult to get rid of because salespeople are great at selling themselves. Well, rather than working with a foggy crystal ball, here is a clear crystal ball that can actually predict if they're going to be on the job success, that can predict all the things that you need to gain your, you know, your goals.
Yeah. So interesting.
Yeah, yeah. So I really want to talk to you about culture and the impact on sales. I know that you have been very particular about growing the Chili Piper culture. So talk to me about that.
Ever since we started Chili Piper, I felt that the only way for me to succeed, and the only reason why I wanted to start a company, was to show that it's possible to be part of an organization where the drive to do better, to have a positive impact on the world and grow your skill set and be your full self is possible. I'm still on a journey to figuring out how all of it comes together. And of course, I want to make all my employees a lot of money, and my shareholders and all of that. So the only reason why I started a company and not join just yet another SaaS company or another enterprise company was that I could feel that there's an opportunity to do culture better. So I have a very, I would say that I spent about like 30% of my mental space on that. And I feel it's critical to brand. I feel it's critical to how our products are getting built, how our customers perceive us, how we sell our product. And yeah, I'm very passionate about it.
So I'm curious, how much of your own life experience has informed what you want to create in culture?
Well, before I started Chili Piper, there were like two big things that were bothering me about other companies that made me think that maybe culture can be different. One is tied to our remote only stance. I couldn't stand the fact that I was stuck in an office from 8 a.m. to 11 p.m. because I was working in finance at that time, and not see my dream to travel the world and do my hobbies and like do all the things that made me whole. I just couldn't see a future where I could just do that for a long time. And the fact that we work so that we can retire one day to travel or to do our hobbies, that was bothering me. I wanted to do those things earlier when I'm not sick and like barely moving. And I was hoping that I could do that for all of my employees as well. So the remote part allows us to do that. Obviously, like remote comes with the pros and cons, and I can like probably spend hours and hours on the pros and cons of doing remote work. And then the other big thing that was bothering me in the bigger organization is the lack of transparency. The lack of understanding how an individual contributor fully affects the system, and fully understanding how like an organization works, and how all the things that we might be able to do would impact that organization's success and ultimately our options and our salary and all of that. And I wanted to be able to create an organization where that is a lot more transparent, where everybody understands how their activities and their actions could change and drive for better business outcome, with the ultimate goal that we also have a social impact that's positive on our ecosystem. And it's not all about like just making the money. It's also being able to, even if we don't like solve for cancer, and like as some other organizations do, we can still have a positive impact on the communities around us. And that's very hard. That's very hard.
Yeah, yeah. So then these are the things that were bothering you and you thought were important in your organization. What are the things that you have, how you've evolved the organization, and then realize that actually probably that's not important, because it's one of those things that's evolving. It doesn't already exist. You can't just buy it. It's not a box. You have to create it. So what are the aspects of creating this new culture what are the aspects that would surprise you that are more important to other people? You've started this, but it's other people that you're creating the transparency for.
So my employees are quite an interesting bunch. So I have people that come from 40 countries. I have people in Morocco, in Nigeria. I have people in Pakistan, Israel, Algeria. So I really have like the full breadth of cultural diversity. And we all assume that our lived experiences might be shared by others. And there's a lot of beauty in understanding that's not at all the case, that we all come from different spectrums and we all care about different things. And what I've learned is that at the end of the day, the type of things that motivate us and that drive us are different. Yet we all want to have, one, like financial stability, and two, a positive impact on those that are around us. And in order to do that, we have to be a lot more understanding of what creates our own financial stability and understanding of the mechanics of like running a business and like all the shareholders and all the intricacies of that, because it's easy to just like blame our manager or blame our CEO or blame the industry or whatever. But once you become a lot more exposed to all the factors that come into play to dictating what your salary looks like, what your options look like, what your bonus looks like, then you're no longer just like a cog in the machine. You can become a driver of change. That's one of the things that came very strongly to me. And then the impact on the community that you have around you is dependent on your power. And in order to have that impact on our communities and do that positive change, we can only do that if we do the best work possible. So I can give you an example. So we have an SDR that she comes from Morocco. And she started with us as an SDR. And for her, one of the most impactful things she could do was to buy her father a car. And she worked as an SDR hard to book all these meetings, because for her, giving back to her father, who helped her through her life journey, was so impactful. And like 3 days ago, we just promoted her to an account executive, and it was like, oh my gosh, we're contributing to her dream. How beautiful is that?
Yeah. Yeah. And how beautiful for the rest of the team as well. You kind of share in that joy, don't you? Yeah. Yeah. So it's interesting. You said it's the power. It depends on the power they have. But the example that you used was very much about her purpose, why she's actually doing what she's doing. She was very much drilled into that as her motivation.
And we all have different purpose. We all care about different things. And 99.99% of the times our purpose is with good intentions.
So in creating the culture, what things that, you've got a really interesting story coming from Ukraine and all of that. And what aspects of your upbringing do you think has impacted your wanting to do something a little bit different?
So Eastern Europe, so Ukraine and Romania and Bulgaria, they're part of the Eastern Bloc, and Ukraine and Romania are kind of the same. I come from Romania. The one thing, and it's funny because I was just having drinks with someone from the political world who was having a conversation recently with Trump, and Trump said the one thing that he appreciates about the Romanians and the Ukrainians is that they work a lot. And I can resonate with that, because I don't remember a time in my life where I actually watched like a Netflix series or watched a movie or like, the things that one would consider as a luxury. And I just like, I have a discipline to constantly focus on work. And the reason why I have this discipline to focus on work is because for me, work is the part that I can control. There are a lot of things that happen around me that I can't. The economic environment, the political environment, the wars on social media on one side over the other, and every country is a little bit different. And I believe that I can only have a positive impact if I can be the best at my work. And that has been a driver for me along the way. So I think that's like one of the big things that shaped me culturally from coming from Romania. Yeah, that's like one of the big themes. There are many others, and we will probably talk hours on it, but that's a bigger one.
So in the culture, how do you reconcile that? So you're picking people where drive is really important, and that feeds into the thing that's important to you, that motivates you. And there's lots of values that you have stated in Chili Piper: help and compassion, and taking ownership, having fun, which makes me think of, you're wanting to travel the world. Why should I, have to do a 9 to 5 or all of that? So I can see how many of the growth mindset that you have kind of feed into your culture. So my question is, do you think that many other organizations, revenue generating organizations, do you think that how they've created their culture, they've got it all wrong? That they're not kind of being adaptive enough for the environment we're in 2024 going forward? What's your view on other revenue generating organizations and how they're structuring their
priorities?
Yeah, and their priorities.
So if I look at my board, and if I look at most companies' boards, the way they look at the company success is, one, growth. Is the company, like, especially in SaaS, is the company doubling? And on the other financial outcomes, is the company profitable? Is their EBITDA looks beautiful? Do they have like the rule of 40? And CEOs feel a lot of pressure from their board to be growing effectively. And they push that pressure down back to their CRO. The CRO pushes back to their sales manager, the sales manager to the rep. And because they have this revenue impact as one of the main metrics in which they assess like themselves and success, they do things that has an individual contributor feeling a lot of pressure, because they have to like close a lot of pipeline and like create a lot of pipeline. And at the same time, they want to be humans as well, because they can't just like pitch slap. They want to have like this long-term relationship with their customers, and they don't want them to just purchase something just for the sake of like pushing something down their throat. So I think that there's a lot of pressure that happens because of this environment that we're in. At the same time, there's another big trend that it's impacting sales teams, which is AI creeping into outbound and inbound and the way sales is done. And AI, all it does is making our reply rates are like lower and lower. It makes our ability to talk to our customers harder and penetrate to the noise. So the outcomes are obviously a lot more difficult, because you have to multi-thread a lot more people in your deal cycle, and then you have to be a lot more opinionated to get their attention on the outbound front. So for sure, the seller feels a lot more pressure than they've ever had. So I have this belief that in 2 years, or maybe like in 1 year, the sellers that are going to thrive, and even on the outbound front and inbound as well, are the ones that are going to understand that at the end of the day, our prospects, the people that we sell to, are going to move through the deal cycle positively if they feel that they have a partner that they can trust on the other side. If you're going to send an AI email that's just going to sound like 1,000 other AI bots in your space without saying this email has been sent by a bot, they're going to lose trust. If they go on a call with a salesperson that doesn't fully understand the emotional things that the person in front of them has to do, without putting their needs in front of theirs, without fully understanding the ecosystem and the type of things that might impact that deal cycle, they have less chances of survival. So I think that the next generation of sales is going to be a lot more dependent of the seniority in that salesperson, the ability to form relationships, the ability to fully understand and be present for their customer to bring value, even if that means that they might recommend a competitor.
Yeah, yeah. So then you've still got this pressure that's coming down the line to that rep that really wants to be more consultative, understand the needs of the customer, but they're still getting slammed by, you know, hit the quota, do that next quota. You can, you know, build the relationship, but get them to sign the deal. So how are we going to change this in the set? Because this has been one of the drivers that has really blocked and made, I believe, sales organizations be laggards in the customer buyer relationship, because there's a certain relationship that buyers want from us, but our funders, the stakeholders do not understand the pressure
the long term.
Yes, exactly. So how is that going to change?
I'm observing a lot of VP of sales, and it's always been the case, like a lot of VP of sales and like sales managers get fired. And I believe that the reason why that happens and the difference between those that last a very short time in their role versus that those that like ride the wave all the way to a positive impact, the leaders fully understand all the aspects of a game plan for their team that can generate results. And what I mean of a sales game plan, there are a lot of components that go to it. So obviously most sales leaders care about the sales comp. They care about the skills training and like bringing good trainers on their team. But there are a lot more components to that. And that's the difficulty of being a sales leader. You have to understand what you can say about your competitor in a sales call to know what would move the needle in that deal. You have to understand how to train your sales team to be resonating what your ICP really needs. As a sales leader, you have to understand that your deal is going to get a lot more accelerated if your marketing team multi-threads your personas and enables that champion to become like a mini salesperson in their organization to really push the deal. And in addition, to make it a lot more complicated, in addition to all these components that are all hard on their own, you have to be really good at understanding all the touch points that can affect your conversion rates in your funnel, so that your team can get most pipeline to close. I can give like a million examples. I have like 23 like touch points, but some examples is how your inbound team might touch your prospects, how your outbound team can become effective in like that handoff to your account executives, how your free trials, if you have like a product, might be impacted of how you think about PQLs, like product qualified leads, how your meeting as a booth at the pre-event. So there are like so many touch points that your customer have, and you have to look at all these touch points in addition to training your team, in addition to doing that good territory segmentation, in addition to your sales comp. So sales leaders have it a lot more complicated than they've ever had, and the winners are the ones who can design a game plan that's effective across the board, and it's hard.
and gets agreement from the board that they will hold off for a year, give me space to actually deliver this game plan. That, I mean, I think they need to make sure that they get agreement. The tenure of sales leaders is what, 18 months, maximum 2 years. It's not enough time to play out the game plan. So you have to manage up as well, surely.
Yeah, for sure. You have to be really good at interpersonal relationship with your board and your peers as well. And I believe that the only way to do that is to have a strong game plan to start with, and then measuring the intermediary metrics that go into that game plan and pivoting with the support of your board or with the support of your peers, pivoting if the intermediary metrics don't play out the way you've been predicting them.
Yeah, love it. All right, okay, so I'd love to ask you, Alina, who is your hero or shero?
So for me as a CEO, it's quite lonely because while sales leaders might have a lot of peers, me as a CEO, I don't really have peers, and I don't really have bosses. Like, everybody's my boss, really. I used to be motivated by other entrepreneurs that, in my mind, were changing the world, like Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos. However, lately I've been quite disappointed because I've seen them reach a certain level of wealth and then giving up on their full commitment to make this world better. And that's for everybody to interpret in whatever way they can. But for me, I've been really disappointed. So I've stopped looking up to heroes, and instead I just seek wisdom from people around me who are doing positive things and being able to do a lot more around the topics that I care about. So there are two topics that I really deeply care about. One of them is peace and allowing us to live a better life because there's no conflict. And on that front, I have Amal, which is one of the leaders that I look up to in all the activities that are peace related. And then on the diversity front, whenever I see woman CEO, I get all excited that finally I see people like me. And I have Irina at Hootsuite. She's the CEO of Hootsuite, and they're a lot further than me. And I hope to learn from her to do better on diversity and all this, on all the financial metrics as well.
That's what wonderful. You know, I think it's not easy to get depressed because we fight. We have to survive. To be where we are. And I know that that's the case. There's going to be lots of people that have put the blocks in our way. So you have to be agile enough to continue to bounce back and overcome. So it's you have to just keep being, the word that you use, resilient and looking for role models and people that inspire. So I think it's really gratifying that you're selecting people around you that are within your peer group rather than those that are, aspiring to the stars. Quite literally.
Mars.
Literally. So I think that's quite interesting that you've kind of like changed your perspective there. What would be, if you could have anything, what would be the one thing that would create the biggest impact for you? And I know it will be in this world, because it's never about you. You've made that very clear. That's not your motivation. It's the impact on the world. If you could have anything, what would that be?
So you and I don't know each other so well. So it's hard to imagine that 3 years ago, I was the kind of person who hated to be on podcasts. or hated to be on stages, hated to be talking to journalists because I was really, really afraid of the limelight. And so I'm the technical co-founder at Chili Piper, and I had all the characteristics of that, of the technical co-founder who doesn't look into the eye, doesn't like the limelight, just like controls the computers and like codes and I remember telling my marketing team, don't put me on stages, never submit me as a speaker. I'm not going to be front and center. It's just that I feel comfortable with this, like fear of death, and like this public persona. And the biggest difference that made the transformation happen for me came from this book that I speak a lot about. It is called The Nonviolent Communication by Marshall Rosenberg. It's like a very popular book on Amazon, and it's a beautiful framework on how to think about our inner monsters and the monster that we might have with the outside world. It made a big difference for me in 2012, I believe, when I discovered it. But I only read it 3 times since then, and I've only did like 3 other trainings with like people that were a lot better understanding of this framework. However, the biggest transformation that happened for me from that introvert to an extrovert who felt comfortable to speaking out and like being on podcasts. And just before this podcast, I've recorded a keynote for 2000 marketers. The biggest difference that got me from point A to point B was this training that I did in Norway, 11 days. It was a retreat that was organized by, when you asked me about my heroes, I mentioned Amal. And Amal is based in Morocco, and she is the head of this foundation for nonviolence. And she organized these retreats on maybe taming the monsters inside of us. That's like the best way I can express it. And all of a sudden, I was there with 130 people in Norway who were all very motivated of bettering themselves and bettering the life around them. And all of a sudden, I felt safe to be me. And when I felt safe to be me, I found the tools, I found the voice, I found the drive to keep moving forward. So my wish is that a lot more people can be surrounded with this like community that allows them to be comfortable, to be who they are. Because once we feel accepted, we feel a lot more brave.
Oh, that's beautiful. I'm going to put all of the links to this in the show notes. Literally, you know, the time I have got about 10 questions from what you've said that I would love to continue to ask you about this. There were so many things that were popping off in my mind. I've got to write these questions down because I'm going to message you them. Oh, wow. I mean, I tell you what, it's making me think of diversity, how people are feel that they're not able to be themselves, you know, women, diversity. It's makes me think, if you come from a certain background, war-torn, threatened, how you hide yourself, you know, you keep yourself small because you know, your whole environment. I mean, so on so many levels, how we're brought up and our perspective on the world, and what a great shame to the world if every individual who's uniquely different isn't able to show their full value and true self. So this course sounds absolutely fantastic. So I'm going to look it up. Yeah, we all need this. This would be a big impact on the world. And can you imagine how much the world will change? This huge impact. Just the, you know, oh, my brain is popping. You have popped my brain, Alina.
I'm all for that.
I'm going to be up all night now, Alina. Working this out. So thank you for that gift.
I'm
All
all
right,
for the popping of brains.
Yeah, definitely. All right. How can listeners get hold of you?
Right now, I am on LinkedIn. That's my primary channel, but I'm also very curious on Threads and TikTok as a channel. And on TikTok and on Threads, I'm learning Gen Alpha vocabulary. I'm learning about skibidi, no cap, Riz, and all.
Because your kids are too young at this stage to teach you. I know it's important to stay relevant. Yeah, good for you.
I'm learning all the Gen Alpha and the Gen Z motivators, but LinkedIn is the main one.
Yeah, lovely. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure. You've certainly popped my brain. I've loved talking to you, and thank you for sharing your experience. And I'm going to reference the Ripple podcast that you were recently on, but literally any stage you go on, this woman is absolutely brilliant, because I've seen Alina in action, and a real role model, and a great personality in person. So I really appreciate you, and thank you so much for being a guest on Scale Your Sales podcast, Alina Vandenberghe. Thank you for listening to this week's episode of Scale Your Sales podcast. If you like this discussion, feel free to listen to other episodes or watch the captioned show on YouTube and subscribe to future episodes. I would really appreciate it if you would leave a positive review on iTunes. Thank you.